Do you know what a headpin is? If you're anything like me, when I started wire wrapping, I had no idea what a headpin was. Apparently it's just a piece of wire with the head of a pin on the end of it. We use them for beads. We put the bead on the wire and it stops the wire from falling through the other end of the bead. So the 4 types of headpins I usually make on my own vary from simplicity to more advanced. If I'm in a pinch, I just make a little loop. I'll make a larger coil if the hole in my bead is large. Then there's the hammered end, which gives a nice look. I really like the look of this. Then there's bald headpins, which you need a torch for, and some more tools and supplies. I grabbed some 24 gauge. We'll start with our looped headpin. I grabbed a pair of round nose pliers, and all I do is at the very tip of my pliers, I make a very small loop. And then I kind of push the wire to center. And that's what I come up with. And that should accommodate most beads. Not all beads, of course, but most small beads. When you're in a pinch, this little tiny loop will do just fine. And then I just want the wire to come out the center of the loop. And then you can cut your headpin to whatever length you need. Next we got the coiled headpin. This will give your bead a cute little whimsical look. I start off making that small loop again with my round nose pliers. But then I grab my flat nose pliers and I coil the wire around until I get to the size that I want. I use my bead as reference when I get to that point. Here I'm using skull beads. I'll link up above to the video where I made these earrings. They turned out pretty cute in my opinion. So yeah, I bring the wire up in a 90-degree angle, and then you can feed on your bead. Sometimes you'll have beads with really large holes, and even bald headpins just go right through them. So in this case, I'll take some larger wire and I'll make a large coil, just like the last one. I take my flat nose pliers and coil the wire all around. And of course my bead determines the size of the coil. Here I size it up to the little frog bead. But then with this one, I want my wire to come through the center of the coil. So I'm going to feed it through the hole, just like you see here. Pull it through. Take some pliers and tighten it up. And this makes a cute little coiled wire button. You feed your bead on. And it makes a cool little coiled headpin. Next we got hammered headpins. You need a steel block and a hammer. If you don't have a steel block, I've used the side of a large hammer before. And it's just a matter of hammering the very end of your wire. Hammer it to the size you want and the look you're going for. And all you have to do is make sure that it doesn't pull through your bead. You can use any size wire you want. And all you have to do, once you're done hammering, is cut them to the length you want. For bald head pins, I have a blazer torch, some crisscross locking tweezers, that's a fire brick there as well, and a cup of water for quenching. For here I have my wire and my homemade pickle in my little tiny crock pot here warming up. I've also got some 22 gauge, 24 gauge, and 26 gauge copper, also some fine silver, 22 gauge, and 20 gauge. I'm going to turn on my torch to about a medium-sized flame, and I usually work off the spool. And I'm going to put the end of my wire right at the tip of that inner blue flame. That seems to be the hottest. When the ball starts to form, I lift up my wire, then I cut it off into the quench. And then I just keep repeating. Since it is a process to make these, I do a bunch at a time. When I grab my head pins out of the water, you can see that they're very dark in color. That is the fire scale that has been created by the torch. Here I'm going to wrap them all up in wire and put them in my crock pot full of homemade pickle. In the meantime, I'm going to make some head pins out of pure silver. I use pure silver over sterling silver because it doesn't create that fire scale, so there's no need to pickle it. My coil was too small here, so you noticed I cut each individual head pin for these. With the larger size wire, I was able to work off the coil. See here? Nice and clean. No fire scale. My copper pins should be done now. I just grab the wire, shake them a bit, shake off that excess fire scale. And they're nice and clean as well. So I hope you enjoyed that little back to basics tutorial. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one. But in the meantime, here's another one you might enjoy.